Good evening. The City of Bothell Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 25th, 2015 will come to order. Let the record show all commissioners are present and accounted for, except for Commissioners Gastineau and Stedman, who are absent and excused. We have one item on our agenda this evening. It's the continuation of a public hearing of the 2015 Periodic Plan and Code Update. And this will be actually our third review of the Wayneta Simons Norway Hill Subarea Plan. Before we open that public hearing, seeing that there are a number of folks in the room this evening, are there any public comments not related to that particular subarea? If so, this would be the time for that to happen. I might also add that specific to the Wayne Golf Course request, we have postponed any further action on that till after June 30th. We've heard both written and in-person testimony with regards to that particular request. If there is some new information that you would like to convey to us at this time, this is the time to do it. But I just wanted to make that point that we have delayed that till after June 30th. Seeing no other non-agenda public comments, we'll move on our agenda. We have the approval of minutes. We have them for 4 of our previous meetings, October 29th, November 5th, November 12th, and November 19th, 2014. Is there any comment or discussion necessary on the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
A motion to approve the October 29, 2014 minutes.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We have no new business this evening, so we will, at this point, move right into the continuation of our public hearing. And as
we need to do the other 3. I just motioned for the...
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you just motion just for that one?
I should have done...
Oh, yeah, let's do them. All right. Sorry.
I'll make another motion to approve the November 5th, November 12th, and November 19th minutes.
Second.
Motion to approve all 3 of these days' minutes. Is all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. No further new business this evening, so we will move right into a continuation of the public hearing for the 2015 Periodic Plan and Code Update, and this is a third review of the Wayneta Simons Norway Hill Subarea Plan. We will have a presentation at this point by a member of our planning staff, Mr. Dave Boyd.
Thank you, and good evening, and good evening to all who have come to observe and comment. I just have a brief presentation and to kind of hit the highlights, and then we can get into more detailed discussion later in the meeting. This is actually the third review, as the first slide correctly identified, which now, for the Wayneta Simons Norway Hill Subarea Plan, which now includes 3 potential land use designation and code amendments. The subarea is in the southern part of the city. We did earlier review request for a code amendment for the Wayne Golf Course Clubhouse area, but that was deferred on February 4th until after June 30th, as the chair stated. So tonight there's one staff generated rezone amendment, the North Riverside rezone and code amendment proposal, and 2 private property owner initiated requests, the Easton Avenue rezone proposal and the South Riverside rezone proposal. The sub-area comprises 1,499 acres. Minor changes have been made to the draft sub-area plan that was presented on November 19th, which included housekeeping amendments, other amendments to reflect preliminary changes to the planning area-wide element recommendations, and also acknowledges the staff proposed land use designation and code amendment, and We have had 4 property owner requests, 3 of which were approved for further consideration on November 19th, 2 of which are proceeding following the February 4th public hearing. And those are shown in the stars on the map there. So tonight's hearing will focus primarily on the 3 land use designation and code amendments that have been approved for further consideration, but we'll also have an opportunity, hopefully we'll get to going through the revised changes in the text of the sub-area plan itself. So staff proposes to present and consider these 3 proposals separately with the staff request last. That way you can have my presentation, take any comment from the proponent if they are here and wish to speak, and public comment, and deliberate and act on each of these as we go forward. The deliberation and action you could hold that until the end if you wanted to, but thought it would be best to focus on these one at a time. So we'll start with the South Riverside one, which we've have gotten the most comments on, and I suspect, looks like from the sign-in sheet, we have the most people wishing to testify on that one. Again, that's shown in the star with the 1. Then we'll move on to the Easton Avenue, the revised request for Easton Avenue rezone, shown number 2. And finally, the staff proposal for the North Riverside area. My apologies to the proponent, or the folks that are here to testify on that, to have them go last again. But hopefully we'll get through this in a reasonable amount of time. So at the end of each rezone proposal, Planning Commission may decide to move forward with a recommendation. There is also the potential of continuing the item until March 4th if necessary. The current agenda for March 4th is fairly light. We're hoping we can wrap this up tonight, but that is available. Or the option of deferring this until after the periodic plan and code amendment remains, if you determine after tonight's testimony that you're just not ready to move forward with it as part of this current recommendation. So with that, I'll move right into the South Riverside rezone. Rob Furman submitted the request on November 19th to rezone his 2 parcels in the yellow dashed line from R9600 to R7200, which was in your November 19th packet as Exhibit WS9. The reasons given at that time were to allow development that would more closely resemble some of the developments that have previously occurred right next to them, and on the west end of that R9600 area, which either didn't require critical area buffers, stream buffers in the case of the one right next to them, or allowed reduced lot sizes as part of a PUD when that was available at that time, as is the case for the development accessed by 107th Place Northeast. R7200 would provide lot sizes that are similar to the lots there. The steep slopes in the area and the critical areas that exist would require significant set-asides, as that PUD was required or did as part of their process. So it's really a request that they be able to develop in a way similar to what was possible before the critical areas ordinance and the changes in the PUD ordinance were adopted. We do have a critical areas ordinance, a fairly robust one now, so those areas would be protected and would be set aside from the buildable area. let me go back before moving on here. We do have two new comments that have been received since the February 25th packet. I've provided them to the Planning Commission by email and in hard copy here tonight. And also I provided a revised memo from our transportation planner regarding the traffic impacts, not just of this rezone, but of all three rezones that are being contemplated here along East Riverside Drive. So, but to officially enter them into the public record, we've got Exhibit WS30, an email from Paul Johnston received on February 23rd, and Exhibit WS31, an email from Ann Agard with attachments received on February 24th. So just again, quickly to give us a sense of the area in the proponents, one of the proponents' parcels is in the upper left here. The development immediately adjacent to them with the stream that goes through the backyard without any critical area buffers is shown in the middle. Another parcel to the west with some wetlands, I don't know if you can tell from that picture that's currently on the market, is shown in the upper right. And then the planned unit development on 107th Place Northeast is in the lower right, and then in the lower left you see underdeveloped parcel on the east end of this area. We felt that the conditions that existed for the proponents' two parcels applied to that whole R9600 area from the senior housing overlay to the west, from there over to I-405. So that's why the staff recommendation originally was to expand that to the whole area. And after getting the traffic analysis from our transportation planner, we felt that we could go ahead and still recommend going forward with that as our recommendation tonight. The rezone analysis included a new figure, the figure shown here with the topography. As you can see, the areas in gray are the steep slope areas where the contours are very close together. When I did the capacity analysis for this on development capacity for the undeveloped parcels here, I did not include those steep areas in the buildable land area. I took those out, and then with the remainder of the property, I deducted 20% for roads and access tracks, and then applied the minimum lot size to the remainder of the area. So that's how the capacity analysis was derived. That's how development review would be done. We would most of these sites would require a geotechnical report, and many of them would require wetlands and or stream reconnaissance reports. It's not quite as obvious as the steep slopes, but there are some wetlands. The one that was in the picture is this one near the intersection of 108th and East Riverside. There's a good-sized wetland on this parcel between the two developed properties that would significantly, along with the steep slopes, significantly limit the development potential of this lot. But there is some land that is suitable for redevelopment within the area. There is some known landslide activity within the steep slopes. All of the steep slopes and some extension beyond are classified in our comp plan as landslide-prone deposits, and then there's known landslide activity where there are starred items, and the lots that were entirely steep slopes and in this case had known landslide activity. The capacity analysis assumed that at the maximum they could do with those sites through a reasonable use provision would be a single home, and it's likely that some of these may not even develop with that, because it would be quite expensive to deal with the steep slopes. But that's so the capacity analysis was actually probably shows more units than we're likely to see in this area by a small factor, because I did indicate that each of those lots could have at least one home. I've presented a revised traffic impact analysis. The conclusion remains the same, that the impacts of these three rezones combined are not significant enough to require any capital improvement projects. Traffic mitigation fees would be collected from any development on any of these based on the trip generations from those sites. But the overall number of trips generated, PMP trips generated in the revised analysis is 47, 23 for this rezone, 23 for the North Riverside rezone, and 1 for the Eason. I think that's the extent of my presentation on that. So I'm going to pause for any questions from Planning Commission, and then we can go to testimony.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Are there any questions of staff on that presentation? Commissioner Clark.
I have one. Thank you, Dave. The memo, the revised memo that came from Public Works from Sherman on the revised traffic analysis, the basis for that was just adding in the potential development of a brewery or something. Is that really what? Yeah,
For the land use capacity analysis, for land use capacity, we just deal with employment and residents. And so his initial analysis was just based on the projected 10 additional employees in that area. But he revised it to reflect the kind of uses that spurred this rezone, the brew pub uses, and the assumption was that perhaps we would get 2 in that area, and those are what those numbers reflect.
Okay. And then on the second page of that, it references the intersection of East Riverside Drive. No, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. It talks about a 3-way stop at East Riverside Drive and Brickyard Road. Can you show us the location of that?
That's actually outside of the area shown on this map. Let me see if I get back to the sub-area plan. I'm going to have to get back to the city, the citywide plan. It's just off of this map.
I think I know where it is, but I don't think it's is it a 3-way stop, or is it just a 3-way intersection?
It's, well, that's a good point. I didn't question that myself, but this is where it is. It's in the Brickyard Road, Queensgate sub-area. At East Riverside and Brickyard Road.
Yeah, there's
So it's just one
there's
stop.
just one.
So East Riverside is through, and
Sure.
Brickyard has a stop sign. So that's one potential pinch point, one intersection where they do have level of service information. The intersection we recognize that the intersection at 102nd and Main does create a backup at rush hour, particularly at the PM peak, and even earlier in the PM when Cedar Park School gets out. And there has been some study of potential signalization of that or other fixes there that we did early in the downtown planning process. Our Public Works Department determined that, well, first of all, they found that just putting a signal there just would move the problem a block or away in 2 or 3 directions, or could, and that there were a number of unknowns with regard to the other road improvement projects that we're doing. So that got put on the back burner, and until after those road improvement projects were finished, and we'll be taking a closer look at that again as we move forward. But again, what the transportation planners have told me is that the majority of the traffic that's creating that congestion, the backups, is not generated from the uses within the immediate East Riverside area. It's from other areas. While we're on traffic, I also posed some other questions that have been raised to them. One was whether tolling on 405 would impact this corridor, and the response was that the proposed tolling on 405 is what they call a hot lane, where you'll be able to pay in order to use the carpool lane, even if you're a single occupant vehicle. So that would not generate any additional cut-through traffic. In fact, it might. Some people might choose to pay that and stay on 405 or stay on the main routes rather than cut through neighborhoods. Trying to think if there are any other issues, traffic issues to address. I do have the memo if you want me to put it up on the screen.
No, that's okay. That
yeah.
that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Commissioner Cabe.
Staying on traffic, the memo that we received looks like it's based on just the Furman property, not the other 64 acres, if that were to be rezoned to 7,200. Is that?
No, it's based on the overall additional capacity.
Okay. Another question on the capacity analysis. So currently, the proponents could develop 16 lots. With the change, we could be looking at 21, change to 7,200?
Correct.
And the second question, the overall designated area, if we were to modify the zoning to 7,200, is that an additional 76 lots, or does that encompass the Furman's 21?
That's for the whole area. So 53 lots under the current zoning, 76 with the R7200 zoning, so an additional 23 lots.
Okay, but it does include the Furman's?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Leet.
So it's just questions with regards to what's been spoken about so far, or
With regards to
the
staff
property?
presentations.
Staff presentation, okay. And not to do with maybe anything in the sub-area plan or anything like that?
Right.
Page, okay, thanks.
I have one question, and then we'll open up for public testimony, and that is on page 4 of the staff analysis and recommendations. I'll just read it. The capacity analysis above estimated that critical areas and their buffers would reduce the buildable area by 40%, factoring in a further 20% reduction in area for roads. You mentioned in your presentation, David, a little bit about a critical areas code or ordinance. I know that even with the existing R9600 designation, that there have been some considerable water issues with some of the existing developments that are there already. Has the planning department gotten better at asking developers to do a much better job of managing the water runoff off of Norway Hill that comes into these neighborhoods? And is that part of this critical areas ordinance that you're discussing?
It's both part of the critical areas ordinance and is also part of the updated state stormwater manual that essentially requires low impact development unless it can be shown to be unfeasible. So yes, the codes requiring better treatment of stormwater runoff are much better now than they were even a few years ago. They've been incrementally improved.
Great, thank you. With no further questions at this point, we'll go ahead and take public testimony, and if you could limit your testimony to this particular part of our agenda, we would appreciate it.
I do have
Yes?
a sign-in sheet,
We have we have a sign-in sheet already?
so I can go ahead and go down that, and then if you
Sure.
didn't get a chance to sign in, there'll be an opportunity at the end.
Great.
So the first to sign in is the proponent, or one of the proponents, Apollo Furman. And I'm happy to adjust the images if you wish.
We would only ask that each of the public speaking, if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes, we would really appreciate that.
Apollo Furman, I live at 11203 East Riverside Drive. Good evening. Of course, we respectfully request that the Planning Commission tonight approve the city's recommendations to rezone South Riverside Drive to the environmentally and family-friendly lot size of 7,200 square feet and pass this reasonable request to the City Council for their review and consideration. The issues have been basically put forward in the packet, but I'll go over a few. This rezone will permit a few families to live close enough to downtown to enjoy access to all of the built infrastructure, what exists currently. Basically, we live in an urban environment. The University of Washington is right here, 405, 522. We have bus lines and bus stops on East Riverside Drive. It's urban in every definition of the word. Burt Gilman Trail is right there. I'll continue. But I do think that there has been some misinformation or misunderstanding with some in the community about what a rezone is and what a rezone isn't. This rezone does not permit family homes to be built on top of streams or on wetlands or buffers or any unbuildable slopes or anything else that is protected. All of that land is set aside. Can future Bothell families build homes on critical areas or unbuildable areas in 9,600 lot zones today? Of course not. When those same lots turn to 7,200, they won't be able to build on critical areas or slopes or buffers or wherever else that can't be built today. The critical areas are protected by the Critical Areas Ordinance. The Surface Water Protection, I think the City of Bothell passed a new ordinance a couple of years ago, and it demands that all water from impervious surfaces be mitigated on site. So, and that's just a couple of things. There really is only one issue with this request: to support and follow the city's recommendations for zoning the buildable land to 7,200 square foot lots. That is really the only issue. There is no additional adverse impact, but there actually is a positive impact of having this lot zone. This will actually decrease the amount of asphalt, sewer, cable, critical infrastructures that are built for the same number of people living in the area. If you look at it, 24 feet per house less of asphalt, cable, and everything else when you're trying to get people in. And that is the reason we're going through this whole comprehensive plan. 20 years ago, we came up with the idea we don't want to sprawl out to the mountains. We don't want to have 1 or 2 lots per houses and just continuously build out. We want to have people living close to downtown cores. I mean, East Riverside Drive is less than a half mile to a mile away. You can walk here from that area. When you're talking about transportation and other issues, the bus line is right there. You can hop on Burt Gilman Trail. You can walk to areas where people now are cutting through to drive to. People would be living there and walking to those areas. Running short on time, I know. I'll just go to the end. Oh, we frequently hear that people love the small cottage homes of Easton Avenue. I do too. Well, Easton has lots as small as 5,400 square feet. We're requesting 7,200. And you think about it, Easton Avenue is built, that's the original houses of the street. So if we're going to be building to the historic character and flavor of what is on East Riverside Drive, we'd be looking at that. Or the other houses that have been built that Mr. Boyd pointed out. So just in closing, I urge you to agree with and vote for the city's well-thought-out, well-studied, and developed recommendations, which are to move ahead tonight with the rezone of this area at 7,200 square feet. And I thank you for your consideration. And I have an exhibit for your pleasure. You don't have enough to read, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
So this will be Exhibit 30, WS 32. Next on the sign-up sheet is Carol Young. And I also wanted to point out I've put up a limited number of copies of the exhibits that have been entered tonight and the revised traffic memo.
I'm shy. so this is
Hi, if
hard.
you could just state your name and address for the record, and
name
then
is-
limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Yes. My name is Carol Young, and I live on 11331 East Riverside Drive. And I've lived there for almost 40 years. And I know that you guys are sincere about you might be getting the wrong information on the traffic, because I'm in the sort of in the middle, so I can go 2 minutes to Woodinville, 2 minutes to Bothell if there's no traffic. But you get in the rush hour time and everything, you could sit there for 20 minutes either way. So if you get all this other population in there, and then you're going to have to widen the road to at least a 3-lane, because there's a lot of seniors on that road, and if anybody gets hurt, you're not going to get anybody in the rush hour time. You will not be able to get any service there. The other thing is that when they've cleared off the top up above us, we're constantly getting flooding, mud coming down the road, ruining our road. My basement, I've had to put 3 different sub pumps in whenever they clear that area up there, because there's underground streams which constantly come in and they're interrupting it, and it's very insecure mud there. So I know it isn't, if you're living with it, it's a lot different than if you're doing a study that might work for somebody. So those are the really important things I think you might want to think about.
Thank you very much.
Next on the sign-up sheet is Claudia Elsmore.
David,
Yes.
if I wanted to use the stock camera, I'm so sorry. Can I just, what do I got to do that?
Go ahead and place it.
Okay, it's not right this second, but eventually. Thank you very much. My name's Claudia Elsmore, 17320 Riverside Place in Bothell. This time I wrote it down, so I'm down to 3 minutes. So I brought these issues, concerns to you before in December and again on February 4th, and they're from the Bothell 2004 Comprehensive Plan. As at this time, in 2004, this area was zoned R96 for the following reasons. Also, it was all done by your previous planning commission. So, first of all, as David has stated, that this entire area from the South Riverside rezone request resides in the critical ordinance area from Brickyard Road all the way to Main Street. The area resides in a critical slope area exceeding slopes of over 15% grade along the entire corridor. That's again from 405 all the way to Main Street. There's documented landslides, as Dave has shown, but also on the 2004 Comprehensive Plan. The latest ones were in Greenleaf and on the 112th PD. These are some of the slopes. I'm not sure if that's going to go. That's right now on the Furman. As you can see, we have some slopes here that, and you guys will get all of this. That's over the 15%. This is just standing on Riverside Drive in the middle of the road, taking shots of the slopes here and going up this road, going to a home on top of the hill. Also, this area has the erosive soil area. It borders East Riverside Drive from 405, again, all the way to the end of West Riverside Drive. That's down by Blythe Park. These are some of the documented landslides. I'm hoping that this makes sense to you. Along Riverside Drive, these are all documented here. Not the new ones. This is from the 2004 Comprehensive Plan. Wetlands. Oh my gosh, where can I start? This area has several large ponds along Riverside Drive, including the Furman property, has 2 year-round creeks feeding the Sammamish Slough. There's the east stream and the west stream. This is, oh goodness, this is 405. The east stream comes clear up on top of Norway Hill and beyond, follows down. This is the Furman's property here, comes down, flows into the river. This is the west stream, and as you can see, it's coming from all over the place, then splits from a previous PUD pipe underneath the 106th, I think, PUD, but also splits and goes the other way and feeds again down into the Sammamish River. This is one of the culverts on the east side of the Furman property, and it's pretty full, and it's got four main pipes feeding this. This is also coming down through the east side of the Furman's property, coming through the Parnell property.
Ms. Elsmore, if we could wrap it up in about a minute.
I'll try.
Thanks.
This is the creek coming down. Oh, I'm sorry. So you need an earpiece, a lapel. This is coming from the west side, underneath the road, and flowing down into the river. As you can see, this is a slough with a duck right there posing. My neighbors on East Riverside Drive has been flooded in the past from the west stream due to high rainy season, clogged drain, and Dave pointed that out. My concern overall is the impervious surface that that will result from the additional cluster housing, roads, sidewalks, patios, etc. There would be nothing to absorb the increased flow of the water before it spills into the slough via existing creeks that are there, and doing damage again to the existing homeowners in that area. Traffic, you guys know the traffic. I'm not really sure about this traffic study that was presented. I asked for the analysis report and did not receive any response from that. This traffic report that was presented was from the Trellis Park off of Brickyard Road, and I don't know if the people are going up on 405. I wouldn't come down into Bothell. But I guess I'm requesting a full study, a traffic study, to understand the impact currently existing on East Riverside. The last one was down in 2002, 2004. I'm also concerned, as Dave brought up, about the Washington State Department of Transportation when they impose the proposed toll on I-405. People find the quickest way to work. I'm sure you all do too. I do. And if I can avoid 405, I will.
Ma'am, we're at about 6 minutes, so.
Okay. Well, I'll just sign up again. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. And I'll give these.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for your time.
Enter these as Exhibit 33. And next on the list is Kathleen Cox.
Apologize, I'm not as prepared as I normally be because I just found out about this, but I was on the Planning Commission for 17 years, and I was here through this hearing and the land use planning process for this. And there were very, very, very good reasons why the zoning was put what it was.
Oh, I'm sorry. For the record, if you could give your address.
It's 19418 108th Avenue, Northeast Bothell, Washington.
Thank you.
I used to live on Riverside Drive. So basically, everything that Claudia has brought up is basically the reasons why. The critical areas, the water coming out of the hillsides, the flooding that's continuously happening on every single time something is built up above, the houses below are starting to be impacted by it. The underground stream systems that are in there, the fact that the slopes are so steep that when you come up, there were very, very good reasons for the reasons that put 9,600 on those lots. And to try to compare that to a piece of property that was built back in 1900 and something, 20s, 30s, say there's a justification for that. The reasons they didn't agree to have any more of that kind of zoning is because we knew that the hillsides and the roads in the area couldn't support it. Riverside Drive, I don't know where that traffic study came from, but you spend 5 seconds on that road between 3 and 6. You don't go anywhere. I've been there as long as 40 minutes trying to get through, and it blocks up down 102nd, backs all the way up to almost back to Brickyard Road. So where that came from, I have no idea, and it really doesn't look, what I read of it, it looks like it's tied for up on top of Brickyard Road where they would access out of the top. Anyways, I could spend an hour here telling you of all the reasons why, but just because you have a piece of property and you're ready to sell it doesn't justify you to increase the zone for your personal benefit. When you were there, you knew, and everybody had the opportunity to discuss and plan for this. We all agreed on it. And when it was all done and said, now people, the one that have the big pieces of property left want to sell it and make the bigger profit. I understand that. I'm not stupid. But we also have to look at what's the best for the city, what's the best for the citizens that are still there, and to suddenly take all 9,600 and then take this one plop of 7,200 makes no justification for that. And then the people to the right, and suddenly adding wineries and breweries and all kinds of other stuff. That road can't handle it. And if anybody doesn't plan for the kind of road system that would take to compensate for that, you're kidding yourself. So, sure, it's a nice idea to zone the property for a single person or even 2 people. But the fact is, there was good reasons for it, and you all should take 5 minutes of your time and go back and look at the rationale for that decision. Because right now, I've seen no rationale that would justify a rezone.
Thank you.
Next is Ralph Lambert of 11339 East Riverside Drive.
My name is Ralph Lambert, 11339 East Riverside Drive, Bothell. I won't take up much time. Claudia and Kathleen Cox have said it pretty well. Whoever did the transportation thing hasn't gone down there and actually drove that area or watched it for any length of time. The water runoff, we've just had to reinforce we live on the hill, and we've actually had to reinforce our hill below us because it started to move a little bit. And if we have more of this development, it's going to impact a lot. And I just hope you really consider what you're doing on here for that, how it affects everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And next is Mike Challenger.
Good evening. Mike Challenger, 21015 9th Avenue Southeast, up in the Thrashers Corner area. Before we get all exercised about problems, both real and imaginary, on flooding, landslides, and traffic, which are obvious problems, I'd like to take a minute and remind us what zoning is about. This is my personal view, and if I'm wrong, I'm sure Dave will correct me. To my view, zoning is a top-tier planning tool for the city. It enables the city to control its growth so that it meets the Growth Management Act requirements. It allows the city to determine where certain activities will take place, where an R4 will be, an R8, an R36, light industrial, office professional, and it allows the city to harmonize all these things for the overall benefit of the city itself. And I think this is the purpose of the zoning is to control what activities will take place where. I live in an R4 area, so does my neighbor. Between us, we have enough land to build, 24 houses. But when you look at the next level down, which are the building codes and the various municipal codes, you will quickly realize that you cannot put that many houses in our area. The fact that it says R4 doesn't mean to say there will be 4 houses per acre, but you may given the requirements of the codes. The codes that exist now would let us build maybe 4 or 5 houses on where we could previously, under the ordinance, put 20-odd houses. So the problems of flooding and runoff and traffic are at the next level down. The zoning says, this is what we'd like to see. You may do this. It doesn't say you shall do this, and it basically says, given what the various regulations are, you may. But those regulations will determine the actual activity that does take place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Ann Agard, and that's the last on the sign-in sheet.
I brought extra copies of the map that I had on my email, and then on this one, I'm not ready to start yet.
And just state your name and address for the record. Thanks.
My name is Ann Agard, 16524 104th Avenue Northeast. I want to say I am opposed to both the rezone of the Furman property and to the larger rezone for the area on the north side of Norway Hill. And I ask that your recommendation to the council be one that you do not recommend the 7,200 and that you deny the rezone request. As a possible alternative, I would ask that if you do not deny it, that you would reconsider and put this over to 2016. And one of the reasons for doing that is that is when the new stormwater regulations will be required by the City of Bothell in January of 2016. And by putting both rezone requests off to that time, you would be assured that the higher standard of stormwater detention would be implemented. The map that I gave you has marked on it approximately it marks approximately the Furman property, and you'll see that there are 4 noted landslides from 2002 just above that property. The reason that one would not recommend, in fact, I would recommend down zoning from 9,600 to 1 acre. But be that as it may, with the 9,600, there are many problems as to why you would not implement a higher zoning in this area. One of them is you obviously would build very few houses on the steep slopes. That is not, probably you could not build on there at all, because trying to build a road up those is virtually impossible. But the second most important reason is that because this property lies below those streams, if there are other landslides that block the streams, create mudslides, these will rechannel the streams so they come right down on through and around the houses that are there. You cannot stop it. And that is the reason. You are endangering both the properties and the people that will live below the landslides, because the streams will change their course and reconfiguration. And and the landslide areas are not deducted from the critical areas on the critical areas ordinance. The streams and the buffers are, and the wetlands are, but you don't deduct the landslide areas in figuring that. The second reason, so that is one. And by setting this up at 7,200, you create a false impression that you in any way can accommodate that kind of development in the area. You simply cannot. And as soon as you start building roads, as soon as you put in infrastructure, you have disturbed the soils, and then they make them even more likely to fail or to have slides and or mudslide or reconfigure themselves. So that's why you don't build in these areas. The second major reason is this transportation. You noted in the email that I sent you a diagram from the comprehensive plan. Well, I also sent an email, as noted, to Steve Morikawa, because I could not figure out what the city was really doing between this February 19th memo that you got in your packet and that we all looked at and we couldn't figure out what was really being discussed in it. And then I go to the transportation section of the Imagine Bothell plan, and I look at the level of service areas, and I could not really figure out what he was talking about. So Steve very kindly responded to me and helped me understand it. So I will share that with you. The city of Bothell has no level of service analysis for this corridor, and neither do they have a level of service established for either of the intersections. So the concurrency requirement that is part of the Growth Management Act that says that you have to have a level of service in the city of Bothell of E or better does not apply here. So while we are all telling you it's a very bad transportation issue, and because the staff has presented you this traffic analysis, which all it says is this generating this number of cars, but this road can accommodate that, is meaningless. Because in this particular instance, the city does not have a level of standard. They haven't even looked at this corridor in their transportation study. And they don't look at the intersections themselves. However, if you go to the highway capacity manual, when it talks about what the level of service would be if the city implemented it, it would be a complete failure. Because for an unsignalized intersection, which this is at 102nd and Main Street, if you're there for over 50 seconds, the intersection is failing. And as you've heard from the testimony before you tonight, you could be there for 10 minutes. I was there for 5 minutes tonight as I crossed over at approximately 5 o'clock to get from the senior center up through the intersection. That is failure. So you have heard testimony after testimony after testimony saying the intersection is failing, but it just happens the city of Bothell doesn't study it. So there's not going to be any traffic analysis of any sort that is going to give you the kind of information that is necessary for it. I also totally disagree that you're not going to see an impact from the tolling on 405. We see the impact every single day as the traffic backs up on 405. It's cutting through this area, it's cut through traffic, and I can absolutely guarantee you before anyone pays $10 to run in the high capacity lane, they will cut through on Riverside Drive before they will pay that. So I ask again that you either deny both of these rezoned requests, both for Foreman and the one that the staff is recommending, or that you delay it until a later time. As I mentioned in my memo, King County is doing a comprehensive study of the slide-prone areas. That will be done early next year. And hopefully that may give at least some update through the city of Bothell of additional landslides that have occurred in the area since 2002. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Are there any other presenters wanting to give public testimony? Yes, sir.
Peter Mikolajczyk. I live at 11216 East Riverside Drive. And, I wanted to second the point. Everybody made a very good point about the traffic. The reasoning about the traffic, not being impacted just seems absolutely false that was given here. I mean, it's like saying you had a couple more cars there, but there's just so much through traffic. Tolling is going to impact it. Just very obvious that intersection and that whole freeway is really slow. But I would like to move on. One thing that I am really concerned about is when we rezone this whole area, it's going to really deforest it, and the wetlands are going to get taken away, and they're going to be replaced by sidewalks and roads. And I live, the house that we live on is right on the East River, as was shown in the previous slide. And that river, in the past, when we bought the house, there was issue with a lot of stuff coming down it, especially during high rain events. So there's basically a huge amount of residue that ends up in the slough. And so when we bought the house, there was some theory that it was because of construction from 405. But when I kind of did some sleuthing, it turned out it was most likely because of Cedar Park developing some ball fields. So they cleared off some land right above on that hill. And basically the runoff from there went down right in this river and ended up right in the slough. So I don't know if you can see this from here. That's going to be a little hard, unfortunately. So if you see, this is the aerial view of my house.
Can you hold that and move it a little higher on the screen?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So that's East River right there, and you can see the dirt that was deposited in the slough. This is kind of an ongoing problem that we have. Now, I'm more than happy to provide these pictures. And my huge concern is that if you rezone this for higher density, there's going to be a lot more, all the trees are going to get cut down. There'll be a lot more roads. Just the velocity of that creek is going to increase. It's going to take a lot more stuff down, and it's just going to go right in the slough. Anyway, those are kind of my big points.
Thank you. Are there any other presenters or speakers on this topic? Yes, ma'am.
Claudia Ellsmore, 17320 East Riverside Place. I just want to urge this Planning Commission, you've heard all of the testimonies. I can just reiterate, but I won't. But I would like to urge this Planning Commission to seriously consider all of these 2004 comprehensive plan issues and those stated by the community before me. The issues have not gone away. In fact, they've increased exponentially due to building some communities upland, upriver, all over the place. I guess I would just like to please ask this Planning Commission to oppose the rezone request and continue with the R96 until some current updated studies can be performed, just for possible impacts to homeowners, to the community, and to the city at large, and mostly to the river, the slough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we will move forward with our own deliberations. Are there any comments or questions? Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. Dave, if you could clarify what the buildable area calculation is based on. It was stated that that landslide areas are not included in that. Is that, can you give us your take on that?
Steep slopes are considered critical areas and are generally deducted slopes over 15%. It's not as cut and dried as streams with this fixed buffer, because we will allow geotechnical reports if they can demonstrate through a professional report that they can safely build in a slope steeper than 15%. We will allow, but the baseline is that we don't allow that.
So in unless there was a geotech that did an analysis that determined that the slope was stable, then they would not be able to?
Or could be made stable
Could be
through
made stable.
geotechnical engineering techniques.
Okay.
But in my analysis, I determined that a good percent, on average 40% of the area was likely to be deemed non-buildable and not included in the buildable area.
Is that consistent with previous applications that have come through? Is that generally true about other previous development in the area?
Yeah, and you can see it in the map with the topo of that area that that for the most part the developments have stayed clear of the steeper slopes.
Okay.
There.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cade?
Thanks, Dave. One question in our packet, I think it was Exhibit 19, asked about tax implications for parcels outside of Furman's, but if they're changing to a 7200 designation, does that have any effect on their property tax?
Well, we don't control the tax, the county does, and I haven't investigated that particular question. I could look into it and get back to you if you wished, but I think it would, if it would be a fairly minimal. It would be based on the number of additional units they could get if they did make an adjustment at all based on that.
Okay. Commissioner Vliet?
Yes. I was the only person who was at the last hearing that when we decided to decide whether to defer the rezoning of this whole area or in particular maybe this particular rezone request, I voted against it because I wanted to look at it further down, into the future. But I also, the property owner approached me after the meeting, or actually I approached him because, I haven't walked the property. And so he did take me out to the property, and I was able to walk it, and he gave me a very nice tour of it, and very informational. I think he's been a very good steward of the property. They had the misfortune of, the stream being pushed over from the subdivision next to him. And I guess, in my mind, it's not a heavily treed area. There are a couple old growth trees on there, but I personally wouldn't say it's a heavily treed area, critically that way, as there are a lot of other, I'd say, much more critical treed areas in this area. I guess I'm also putting faith in the process of the engineering of capturing of stormwater runoff when it occurs, and the imprint that properties have in being able to maintain the water on the property at today's standards or better. And so, at first, I was very much opposed to this rezone, and I think, as I look at it now, I don't know if there's a possibility of splitting it up and having a motion to, I guess it is possible, but to vote on this one particular property. And the reason I would do that is, these property owners have taken a lot of time, gave a very organized explanation, came to us in advance. It's probably the best. It's probably the best thing that we've received as far as analysis right through. The owners have been here at several meetings, so I don't know if that's a possibility. I guess what I'm saying is I would be in favor of this request, but I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of this request as far as staff's recommendation without some further analysis of the landslide statistics that one of the speakers spoke to, said is going to come out this next year. But I guess and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I know these property owners, a very big thing for them. They were nice to walk me around. And one thing I was also, that made me feel better about this decision was that, there are going to be critical areas that are maintained, wetlands, setbacks, all of that. And so the amount of houses that are being spoken about that could possibly go here are probably significantly less than I think what we've been talking about. But anyway, so I've gone a little long there, but I think this is a huge topic. It's a beautiful part of Bothell that everybody's driven by, and I think it's a really neat area. But I would be in favor of this proposal, but possibly breaking it up as far as the whole area goes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Commissioner Stahl.
Dave, can I ask you a clarifying question? We've had a lot of comments go by. Does changing the zoning change also the wetland classification?
No. The wetland classification and the buffers, same streams, classification buffers, steep slopes issues all remain the same regardless of the zoning.
Thanks.
Mr. Cabe.
I had a couple quick follow-up questions. I really split on this issue because I can see both sides. I think we do need to offer single-family homes close to the downtown core. There's not a large opportunity to do that outside of some of these parcels. At the same time, developing right above a river with critical areas wouldn't be my first spot, but I understand that those will be protected and those will be sussed out through the process. Dave, in your opinion, what would we gain by waiting or deferring? What added information would we get? It doesn't sound like there's a traffic study in the works specific for this road, nor does it sound like any additional environmental information other than, as Ms. Agard brought up, the King County steep slope guide. It doesn't seem like there'd be much information we would gain if we pushed off the vote today. Would you agree?
Well, there's always new information coming in, and if Planning Commission wished for some additional analysis on some of these traffic issues, we could do that with additional time. What I've given you is shouldn't be characterized as a traffic study. It's an analysis of the trips generated by the increase in capacity that this rezone would create. But there are some. If you would like to delve into it further, there was some study done of 102nd and Main in the downtown planning process. If you felt that was relevant to this, we could provide that to you. Our transportation planners' feeling is that is a known problem. It's not that we're saying it doesn't exist. It's just that the impact of this rezone will be relatively insignificant in the grand scheme of things. The traffic generated that's creating that problem goes well beyond this immediate area that we're looking at for the rezone.
One other question. Can you provide some more information on the zoning history? So when this was looked at in 2004 and it was 9600, what was the zoning prior to 2004 and kind of where's it been throughout Bothell's timeline?
I'd have to get back to you with a full history. I know that...
Seem a little dark.
Okay. Earlier, zone R9600 was known as R4. So, and some of the testimony has referred to R4. That was 4 units per acre. 9600 is minimum lot size, 9600 square feet. It's roughly the same standard. So again, I could come back with a more thorough history of that, but I have consulted with other planners that were here in '94 when we did that plan update, and were here for the implementation of the critical areas ordinance in the '90s, and and some of these developments, the PUD on 107th Place. they're all in support of this this rezone, given our much more robust critical areas protections, and the many of the issues you've heard, the proximity to downtown, to regional parks and trails. We just feel that this is an area that done right, smaller lot sizes can create development with less impact, but still providing more and at least marginally more affordable housing than our 9600 zoning will.
And lastly, I'm not as concerned with stormwater as I am groundwater. Stormwater, I think we can, catch, and I think we can mitigate, but a little concerned with stormwater coming off in Norway Hill. When you go through the environmental review process, when a development is put forward through to Bothell, can you walk us through that process and whether the geotech will look at groundwater, or if that's going to be a major consideration when considering how many lots can be built and sort of the design of the space?
Yeah, they will look at seeps on hillsides, and because that will certainly be a factor in any geotechnical interventions that they would make. And that actually, the seeps would also be investigated by a stream or a wetland biologist too, and we'd most likely have all of those reports for any development, at least on most sites in this area.
Commissioner Stahl?
Yeah, there's just trying to process through a lot of this. We have heard a lot of great testimony, brought up a lot of points, have a lot of analysis. I mean, our whole desk is covered with traffic reports and maps and things like that. My inclination here is it would be very easy to just continually defer this. Ask for more analysis, more testimony, more analysis, this, that. If we're not going to do it, then we should just cut it off and not do it. If we are going to do it, we should go ahead and give some clarity there. And I would rather, we have a tremendous amount of information, testimony reports and traffic reports and land, and I don't want it to be deferred unending. And so I'd like to just go ahead and put a motion, and one way or the other, and we'll make a decision, and then we'll keep going.
Commissioner Vliet.
I just have a question on that, Mike. So are you saying the motion for this particular property or for the whole area?
Well, I would be inclined to make a motion for to go with staff's recommendation. We've had a lot of points brought up, but as I go through the packet, a lot of these points have been spoken to and addressed very, very thoroughly by a lot of what Mr. Boyd has gone through. So we've got a lot of information there, but I'm inclined to go with staff's recommendation.
Okay. I'd just like to make a few comments, and then we can craft a motion either for the entire property or for the particular parcel. I think there's been a lot of tremendous comments made this evening by folks, and I'd like to thank everybody for them. As has been mentioned up here, we've had a lot of material in front of us that we've studied. Staff has provided us with a lot of information. Here are the things that are guiding my thinking. I do have an appreciation for our history and what's transpired in the past. Probably something that speaks as loudly to me as anything is I know that there are particular neighborhoods in this area that we're talking about that have had significant water issues coming off of that hillside. I know that. And so my concern is probably more directed towards this, as you could tell from my questions around this critical areas ordinance and the new and improved learning that we've done. And because the fact is, this happened with R9600. I mean, there are significant issues with some of the neighborhoods already. So I think that's probably the thing that guides my thinking as much as anything is the assurance that not doing a rezone request is going to do, but what's really happened in the maturity of our critical areas ordinances. And Dave, if you could just comment a little bit. I know you mentioned that we've really significantly refreshed things and improved things in the last few years, but that would be my main concern, is that I want to have, regardless of how the vote goes, that there's an improved knowledge base inside City of Bothel's planning staff on the water management coming off of that hillside.
Like I said, that knowledge base has improved and is improving all the time. Our code actually currently basically adopts the state stormwater manual as it's updated. We refer to the 2004 stormwater manual, or as amended. So as they update it, that's what we hold new development to. And also, no development is vested by zoning actions. It's vested by when we receive a complete building permit, construction permit. So if there is new knowledge that comes in next year through the King County study that can be incorporated in developments that happen after that comes in.
Okay. So thank you for that. So I think that my last thought on this is that I think Commissioner Vliet's point about the considerable study on this particular parcel is something that I'll be voting for. The larger area by staff, I think both with regards to the water issues, as I've pointed out, as well as traffic analysis, I'm a little more on the fence about. So I think at this point I would vote for the particular parcel request. So anyway, I don't know if we want to craft a motion on this at this point or not. But.
Well, I think procedurally that's what we need to do. So again, my understanding here is that this will not suspend environmental protections. It will not immediately convert it. It won't get rid of the wetlands. It won't mean that 5 houses immediately pop up. There's still a very long process for things to happen. This just moves it one step along that. But all of the protections, all of the environmental protections are still in full effect.
Commissioner Clark.
I'd like to just add in mind, thank everybody that came to speak tonight. We appreciate all the comments. One of the concerns I have, I'm also in favor of approving the particular parcel that the original proposal was based on. One of the concerns I have is that we've had comments about spot zoning and that kind of thing, and it concerns me that we're kind of doing that if we just do this one area. And I think unless there were a significant justification not to do the entire area, I guess I'm predisposed to go with the staff's recommendation as well, and trust, I guess, the protections that are put in place beyond this comprehensive plan amendment process, both whether it be a SEPA analysis for a particular project, a SEPA analysis for the area in general, a plat proposal or some other proposal, that the protections are put in place. That is the place where the detailed individual review should be done. And whether that's traffic, stormwater, groundwater seepage, wetland impacts or whatever, that is the place where the level of detail that we really need to determine whether an individual parcel is buildable, that's really the place that needs to be done. And frankly, that cost needs to be borne by the people that would like to develop that land. I believe that if the Furmans, the proponent, would like to come with a specific proposal and there's some analysis that needs to be done on their property, they should pay for it as part of their development cost. I believe that's fair for everybody. I don't think it's fair for us to spend money proving a point at this point that really I think is somewhat irrelevant. As long as we're reasonably sure it's going to work, let's leave the proof to be at that individual project level. That being said, I would like to tender a motion.
I have one further question. So, Dave, traffic. Is there any further traffic analysis that any further time would actually provide to us in the way of information on this? Or I understand Commissioner Clark's point about that any more detailed traffic analysis would occur at the time of the particular request.
Well, there would be some more detailed analysis done as part of the request. That's when an actual traffic study would be done, a more detailed study. I think that what we would be able to bring you, if you're interested, are bringing back to you some of the study that was done on 102nd and Main. Just put that into the record. We could ask the transportation staff to address some of the questions that were raised tonight. Although I think for the most part they have been addressed. There may be differences of opinion on issues like whether adding hot lanes on 405 is going to increase cut-through traffic or not, but
so there would be additional traffic analysis done per parcel as that came up.
As they're developed, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's all part of the calculation of what the traffic impact fee for that parcel would be.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Cade.
So we exchanged some emails earlier today, Dave. That study would only be done based on a certain size for development, correct? Not necessarily if we're adding 10 houses, you're going to do a full traffic study of East Riverside Drive. Is that
well,
true?
It's done for the development that's proposed. What we did here was to try to do an analysis of the cumulative impacts of these three rezones, assuming that they all get fully built out based on our capacity analysis. And admittedly, it's not a terribly rigorous or in-depth study, but that's basically the kind of planning area and planning level analysis that we would typically do with a rezone.
Okay. So I think we've got majority to pass this based on comments. I'll be voting against it because I think we could learn more from additional studies. I don't want to prolong this for the Furmans. I don't want to keep owners in limbo, but I think it's easier to do it right the first time as opposed to trying to undo something down the road. So I think we could learn something between now and January, but I'm open to your guys' further discussion or motion.
Oh, I guess,
Mr. Lee.
I'm in a bit of a quandary because I would be apt to vote against it, but I do want to vote for the Furman property because I look at it aerially. It's very different from the other properties. And just visually from an aerial photograph from this high far away. No other property owners. I don't see what the urgency is because none of these other property owners have come to us. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but I don't know of any other property owners in the area. I don't know who owns all this land over here and this land. I just don't know what the urgency is to do it all at once. It seems like different than a lot of the other sub areas that we've gone through this time around. I mean, these are essentially undeveloped parcels that we're talking about, for which you just don't get those back in the future. I think, as you mentioned, when you upzone like this, or you don't downzone very often, so if ever. So,
well, I think that's a good question, Dave, to direct to you. So the initial request came for 2 parcels, and then the staff recommendation is to do the whole one. And what I'm hearing you're asking, David, is why would staff recommend to expand the area as opposed to doing just the 2?
No, I understand why you want to kind of keep the. I just don't. I'm not quite sure why this particular area is to be down like this. Why this red line is in any way a reason for making it 7,200. I don't. It's kind of an imaginary line, and so this is a tenth of the area that the Furman request is on of the total area. If I believe I'm correct, that's 7 acres out of 70. Prime right down in downtown Bothell. That I don't know. I think it warrants further study, the surrounding area, but I definitely would vote in favor of the Furman request. So I kind of danced around your question, but yeah, I guess I do wonder why they're trying to. I guess Dave, why are you wanting to zone the whole 70 acres 7,200 rather than 96?
Like I said in the opening, we felt that the rationale for rezoning the Furman properties applies to the other undeveloped properties in that area. But Commission is and there is a bit of a spot zoning, or we could be accused of spot zoning by just picking off two parcels in the middle of this area. But that is what we got the request for. We did hear at the previous hearing from two of the other property owners who were in favor, and there are exhibits in the packet in favor of this rezone from other property owners and citizens. So, but it's certainly within your rights to. I think there's two or three different directions you could go. You could approve the Furman's request just for their properties and say that's as far as we want to go, and we don't want to bring the rest back. You could approve that and defer further consideration, ask us to bring the remaining area back for further consideration, or you could approve the entire area.
Well, I think as we can tell, there's considerable discussion up here, and there's some decisions in front of us that are very easy, others that require more deliberation. I understand the point about zoning consistency or spot zoning, although the fact is there's a lot of spot zoning in this area right now anyway. I mean, I see R8400, R4000, R2800, and R9600 all basically next to each other. R5400 too. I would go back to I'm in my mind assured from staff and from Dave that we've learned a lot with regards to water management, and that whether it's 9600 or 7200, that we're going to do a much better job of that. The traffic analysis, though, is something I'm not sure. I don't have as good of a sense as to the traffic impact of 70 acres and the additional potential capacity. And I think we should recognize it as potential capacity, that theoretical capacity. So I think from my standpoint, I will vote for the Furman request, but delay the remainder.
Well, I will go ahead and put that into a motion. So I make a motion that we follow staff's recommendation with respect to approving the Furman request.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So we have a 3-2 vote. It's a majority for us tonight. We are without two of our planning commissioners, but we do have a quorum, so the motion does pass. All right.
So was the motion to approve Furman and defer
Yes.
the remainder? Okay. Great. Ready to move on?
Yep.
Pardon me while I fast forward here. Yep. Okay. Hopefully this one will be relatively easier, and there are nobody has signed in so far on this one. The Easton Avenue rezone has been significantly revised by the proponents and downscaled by the proponents. They had originally proposed to rezone 14 parcels of R9600 and R8400D, both with the SSHO overlay, to R5400A. They have revised that to just include rezoning part of one parcel to R5400D SSHO so that parcel will no longer be split zoned, and that happened as a result of the development of those parcels along that side of Easton Avenue. So staff's recommendation is to approve this request. Any questions?
Any
Go on.
questions of
Yeah.
staff? Commissioner Cabe.
Due to the change in the request, it seems like a lot of the questions that were brought up in our exhibits have now sort of gone away because we're only focusing on that one property versus the whole street. So I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to confirm my understanding that some of the neighbors' issues with changes to the rezoning has now been satisfied with this modification.
I believe so, yeah.
Any other questions? Commissioner Vliet.
Yeah, so Commissioner Cape, so you guys were saying that a lot of the traffic issues that were described in the previous emails about this property and this street have been resolved? I don't quite understand with the zoning change how they've been resolved. Or
Well, I don't know that there were any traffic issues. I think it was mostly about the character of the street.
Okay.
And so this would actually, the split zone parcel is the parcel that Pat and Jennifer, the proponents Pat and Jennifer Casno, live on. And in the capacity analysis, I indicated that it would potentially add one dwelling unit. In reality, you could do another dwelling unit there even without the rezone with some boundary adjustments. But it would certainly make adding a unit a little bit easier. So that's even arguable whether it would really add capacity. But it does make the zoning boundaries conform to parcel boundaries, which is what we try to do. Sometimes that gets disturbed with boundary line adjustments and development, but this would be a remedy to that situation.
You have questions?
I have no questions.
I have no further questions. Are we ready to have a motion on this?
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend that the extension of the R5400D SSHO portion of the area to eliminate the split zone lot.
Second?
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to the third rezone. This is the North Riverside rezone and code amendments, which resulted was staff proposed, but it resulted from multiple inquiries from microbrewery owner operators about suitable locations in Bothell, including a couple of inquiries about properties in this particular area. So we recommend a couple of amendments, adding an light industrial or LI designation to the R2800 OP zoning on the north side of Riverside Drive, and changing the regulations for uses in LI zones to add taverns as an allowable use, which restaurants are already used and they have similar characteristics in terms of traffic generation, and also some other changes to provide more flexibility for breweries, wineries, and distilleries with tasting rooms, which would apply to LI zones citywide. I'll just have a few images of the area. As you can see, another reason for going with the LI is that there are some existing light industrial uses still left over from previous light industrial. So that would allow them to remain as conforming uses as opposed to legal non-conforming uses. The image on the upper right is one of the properties that is being looked at, not the entire thing, but a portion of that for a microbrewery. But it really is a mix. There's the senior health and wellness center. There are the industrial uses, office uses, the office use in the background, this drywall use, which is in a former single-family residence. So it is a mix. There is some development potential, but not a huge amount. And typically, light industrial would actually result in fewer employees than office and professional. But we do recognize in the analysis we did that if one or two brew pubs went into this area, there would be a different kind of traffic generation, and the analysis takes that into consideration.
Any questions of staff? Dave, I have one question, and that is, I get the light industrial. I mean, when we think of a microbrewery, we're thinking of the manufacturing aspect of it, but there is a retail aspect as well, as you've mentioned. Why would we not want to also have a neighborhood business designation?
Neighborhood business would open it up to a much broader array of commercial uses. It would open it up to the kinds of commercial uses that we're trying to focus into the downtown sub-area. So we thought that the light industrial with these adjustments to encourage breweries, distilleries, wineries with tasting rooms and remove some of the restrictions on tasting rooms to give them a little more flexibility would be the way to go here.
I haven't looked at the rest of the city of Bothell where we have light industrial. Are there other areas, and would microbrewery addition be appropriate?
Our light industrial zoning is pretty limited. There's some light industrial on, if you continue on East Riverside past 405, it becomes Woodinville Drive, and there's some light industrial between that Woodinville Drive and the river. And then there's fairly extensive light industrial up in the Canyon Park Business Park. So those are both areas where microbrewery or a brewery, even under current zoning, could locate, but they're not the kinds of areas that the ones that have approached us are looking for. So
wait, so I just want to make sure I got your point. So you're saying the light industrial areas in Canyon Park currently could have a microbrewery located on them?
Yeah, currently breweries are allowed in light industrial, and they can have tasting rooms, but there's some limitations on them that might or might not work for depending on the brew pub kind of operation.
I guess I just want to make sure I'm really getting it. So you say up in Canyon Park, there's areas that are light industrial, microbreweries are allowed, tasting rooms are allowed, but then there's some other limitations around other retail aspects of them.
The retail uses need to be accessory to the industrial use. That's probably not an issue. The other proposal that we're making, the code amendment that we're making, is to add taverns here, so that a microbrewery could actually have a full-blown brew pub that would operate as a tavern. Taverns are allowed to have up to 50% of their area devoted to brewing, and we don't really see any practical reason for that limitation. So we're proposing adding taverns to the uses allowed in light industrial, and not making this limitation on the percentage that goes to the brewing operation and the tavern.
Am I the only one who's struggling with this? I mean, I'm no problem with microbreweries along Riverside Drive. I'm just questioning the designation, but maybe I'm alone in that. Help me out here.
I have a question about would it be possible? Is it allowed to have them designated this area designated both light industrial and neighborhood business? Is that a possibility?
It could. We don't have any other places in the area where in the city where we've combined that particular combination of uses. And again, our original recommendation was to go with adding the neighborhood business designation, but when we got to thinking about what we're trying to create in downtown and the fact that we could create some one of the big things we did in the downtown plan is we actually reduced the area where you could do pedestrian-oriented retail, which is one of the things that is allowed in neighborhood business zoning, so that we would really focus that along Main Street and along the boulevard. And as it grows, it can expand out from that, but we keep it as a distinct pedestrian retail district. What we had before was we allowed those kind of uses pretty broadly throughout the downtown sub-area, and we were getting dispersed retail. So we want to stick with that, not undermine that effort by creating another area so close to downtown where we could have it. The other areas where we're considering, where we have neighborhood business zoning and even considering expanding it are separate neighborhood activity centers in the city, like the one in Nike Hill that we've talked about, and we're going to be talking about further after June 30th, where there would serve as convenient shopping for the immediate area, but it wouldn't really be competing with downtown or the Canyon Park business district.
So, Chair Booth, I guess I'm confused too. Are you more concerned with the designation of this area or with the zoning code changes that would go along with it that would apply to the entire city?
The latter.
Okay.
And my concern, I just don't want to have an unintended consequence of we have all of a sudden in the middle of an office park in Canyon Park, we have a brewery pop up, which, I mean, maybe that's what we want, but it's not really what we've been talking about. And I just that's something else to think about. And I know we've also done an RAC overlay on a lot of Canyon Park as well, right?
We're adding that.
Right. Right. So there's kind of a whole retail flavor that we're already looking at that. But
well, RAC is strictly residential. It's our highest density residential. That was to create the housing capacity.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I'm just saying we're doing some things with Canyon Park already, adding micro brew pubs. So, and I don't want to beat this to death, but I'm just want to accomplish the goal here and not create any kind of weird consequences that we didn't really think about. But
well, we did think this through.
Okay.
In the Canyon Park example, right now you can have a restaurant in the light industrial portions of, and there are a few, and so there are places for the folks working up there to go to lunch.
Yeah.
There aren't any places for them to go for a beer after work. So we thought it was appropriate in that context to have to allow that kind of use. And then the other one down further east along the river, it would be okay. We didn't see any harm in allowing that. Well, or in the fact that it is already allowed there, the brewery type use, but the minor tweaks that we're making to the implementing regulations were mostly to accommodate this relatively new phenomenon of the brew pub that associated with the microbreweries.
Okay.
I'm going to keep going for a minute. I think to the city of Woodinville is an example of. It seems to me that their zoning code already allows this already, and because I know there are several breweries in the areas of Woodinville that are more of kind of this light industrial. I'm not sure if that's their actual zoning name for that, but there are breweries in those areas, and I think it frankly makes those areas a little bit more vibrant, and I think that it would be nice to encourage that sort of thing to kind of come west a little bit toward Bothell, and frankly, what's going on in Woodinville has been, I think, very well received to the wineries, the distilleries, the breweries, and that kind of thing, and I think we should very strongly consider, I think, encourage that sort of, I guess, that economic growth, that sector of economic growth to happen here as well. So I would be in favor of doing this and allowing the corresponding zoning changes.
Thanks. The chair appreciates that.
And I have presented this to the chamber, and they are supportive of this as well.
Commissioner Vliet.
Yes, I'll have to echo what Commissioner Clark said there. I agree with everything he said. He kind of said what I was thinking with regards to pulling some of the wine crowd over from Woodinville, although he didn't say that. They do have some breweries there in light industrial, but I think it makes a great transition into Bothell, having a micro brew little sub area here. I know a lot of the questions with regards to our previous discussion on the Furman property had to do with traffic. I would have to say that the Furman property traffic would have nothing on this with regards to. I know this is already a very, very busy area, so I guess I would wonder about traffic study. I'm very much in favor of having this concept there, but having a traffic analysis for that sort of thing. Possible road improvements, increased lighting, because you're going to have a lot of, I assume this is going to be open, into the evening, and a lot of rainy nights, drops hitting the windshield, people pulling out of a micro brew pub. So I don't know. I would assume there'd be have to be some adjustments made to the area to compensate, and especially the parking. I wouldn't be against a smaller parking structure, but do we think we have the parking capacity in that area to currently? It looks like maybe we do from those aerial photos, but
well, the uses, again, when they apply for their permits, they'll have to meet the parking requirements for the proposed use, and I think there's certainly the land capacity for the traffic. What we've and we did analyze the trips generated based on a fairly conservative estimate of how many. We're not anticipating that this will be wall-to-wall brew pubs going down East Riverside. We based our capacity, our analysis on possibly two going in there. We might be lucky to get one, but and there. I did want to make sure you were aware that there are two people signed up to speak on this as well.
I'm glad you brought that up. We neglected to take public testimony on this issue. Do we want to? Are we at a break point? Are there any immediate questions, or could we take public? Commissioner Cabe.
One follow-up question to the traffic concerns. I am concerned about any additional traffic. Last time we spoke about this item, we were talking about the peak impact being off hours. I don't know if that's naive to assume, but I don't know that many people are going to be going there between 4 and 5 when it's tough to move anywhere on East Riverside Drive. But I'll be interested to hear from testimony because I don't live in that area of the city.
Part of the traffic analysis, there isn't an actual the manuals that they use don't actually show trip generation figures for brew pub. So we used the trip generation from a can't remember it, a restaurant essentially, and for that kind of use, they assume that about on a corridor like that, they assume that about half of the trips generated would be pass-by trips, people who would be driving by anyway and stop in on their way somewhere else. So that's what's, and I think that is explained in the memo. So so yes, it would add some trips, but it would some of the trips generated would be trips that are already going past there.
I think at this point, let's take public testimony from those who signed up and then any additional ones. So let's go ahead with that, Dave.
Okay, so first is Jim Jameson, followed by Maury Bermans.
Thanks for the time. My name is Jim Jameson, live on 22329 53rd Avenue Southeast. Lived in Bothell for 30 years, 3 kids grown up, gone to Bothell High School. I own Foggy Noggin Brewing currently. Next month we have our 5th anniversary. We've been awarded Best Nano Brewery in the state of Washington 3 years straight. Proud to bring that home to Bothell every year. We're really involved in the local community, very involved in Bothell High School in helping fundraise for their Performing Arts Center, their athletic department, and other student involvement funds. Very involved in some other communities' efforts in the Holson-Homish County and North King County areas, too. What's unique about me and understanding how do you fit in a community is my current brewery and tasting room is in a neighborhood. We're in a neighborhood on 53rd. It serves about 80 homes. And one of the things that I was very concerned about every day when I open up my business is how do I fit into the community? How do I not impact it, make it a negative? And we've done a fantastic job. I have worked with Snohomish County Public Utilities to do traffic studies. When we are open, we have the least amount of impact on the road of any day of the week and in any time slots, the days that we're open and the times we're open. Speeds on the highway are the lowest on any time in that same scenario. We have lower speed limits tracking down the road when we're open. I think that adds to the kinds of customers that we promote, that we attract, and the kind of upstanding citizens that come to our tasting room. The other thing is, Mr. Booth used to live on 53rd, and one of the things about living in suburbia is what I call it, is you don't get to know your neighbors. And we have about 80 homes on our street, and nobody really knows anybody. In the last 5 years, I've gotten to know every neighbor on our street. Neighbors have got to know everybody. It's not just 53rd. We've got people from all the way from 35th to, all the way down to Highway 9 that come just about every weekend. Now they're friends. They look forward to seeing each other. They trade emails and talk to each other, and they look forward to it. It's a gathering place. And I think that's another really positive thing that we don't have in Bothell. We don't have places like that for people to get together as a community. So I think this is important. I think to take that area on East Riverside Drive and open that up to another alternative use that really is not available in Bothell. I've looked for 3 years for a place to expand in Bothell, and I've taken 5 spots to the Planning Commission. I've been turned down on all 5. Another one was on East Riverside. I did about a year ago. And looking at East Riverside, the zoning used to allow this kind of use. It wasn't that long ago, and that's how you have all the different kinds of businesses you have on there. So at one time, Bothell thought that was a great thing, and now you've got a mixture of all kinds of things. You've got light industrial, you've got office, you've got professional businesses, and bringing in the ability to have a microbrewery with a tasting room will just add another element, another flavor, another attraction point to the residents in that area. Also to keep people in Bothell. You look at East Riverside Drive, and where do people go for their free time, leisure time, to have some time out with their neighbors, to go meet some friends? They're going to Woodinville. And nothing against Woodinville, but let's keep the Bothell residents in Bothell if we can. Let's give them a place to celebrate and have their community times in Bothell. And I think East Riverside Drive is a fantastic place to have that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time. My name is Maury Borman, 10624 East Riverside Drive. I'd like to make it short. I support and would like your request for you to approve this project. I'm the property owner, and also my next door neighbor, which has the sheetrock business. He also supports the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any further questions or deliberations? Is there any other public testimony? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I don't think anybody's really truly freaked out about having a pub down there or whatever you're going to call it. Walking in this door today, I have to tell you, I'm a teeny bit shocked. Sat up there for a long, long time. What I see here is a bunch of little spots. Somebody wants something, so let's change the zoning for this one, and let's change the zoning down here for this little spot over here, and let's change the zoning for this little spot over here. And each one of those have an accumulative effect. Now, I think that the Riverside Drive people deserve the whole thing to be looked at and determine whether it's land use, the land use that should be appropriate for the area. And sure, there's some different stuff in there because of the fact that stuff has been grandfathered from a zillion years ago, and then the rest of it was built based on the plan that hundreds and hundreds of people came to. We had meeting after meeting after meeting, bringing people in to put their opinions on what the land use should be for the area. We didn't want to drive out the people that were already there, so they were grandfathered in. No problem with that. The light industrial already kind of allows that to happen. When you're talking, the business part of it, that allows for amusement arcades, bingo halls, bowling alleys, all kinds of other stuff that you really don't want to see there in that little residential area. I have a concern with the fact that nobody wants to deal with this traffic issue, which is horrendous on that street. Once you're on it, you can't get off it, and if you're off it and you try to get into it, you cannot get into it. You could be waiting for 20, 30 minutes to get off and around the corner. You can't really widen the bridge on 102nd or widen the intersection on Main Street in 102nd. You just can't do it unless you're willing to tear out buildings on the corner on each side, and we're talking millions of dollars. And that isn't going to the developers. That's not going to anybody else. It's going to the taxpayers of Bothell. And somewhere along the line, you guys got to remember that part of it, and not just because one guy walks in and says, I want this, and the guy down the street, I want it, it's not so bad. And I have a procedural issue I would like to ask, and I don't know if this is appropriate time or not. Is it? I have never sat in a hearing that's in the middle of a process going to something, where people are hearing, where a planning commissioner goes out with the developer to a piece of property by himself, has private conversations that none of you heard or any of us heard, and can use that for part of their deliberations. I know there's legal issues here that we're facing. And then we hear that somebody that used to be here during the 2004 hearings agreed with it. Who? Who is that was here? I don't know, but I just think that the Riverside Drive people deserve a comprehensive look of Riverside Drive. Not just, hey, I want my piece changed, and I want my piece changed, and I want my piece changed. Well, that little piece doesn't seem like a big deal. But now we're talking the cumulative effect of everything that you're doing. That's a whole section of road down there nobody would probably think it was a horrible thing if you looked at it in the whole, but somewhere along the line, that traffic issue is so bad right now that you can't even get out of your driveways when you're coming out at certain times of the day for hours. And to say, well, it's only this one, it doesn't really have it that bad, and nobody's saying that the pub is a bad idea. They're saying, at least give us the benefit of letting us know what the impacts really are. Can this area truly support this? You don't know. You haven't gotten anything from these guys that tell you anything about what the traffic issues are. You are supposed to be asking those questions and getting that kind of information. That's your job. And I'm expecting that you're going to be sitting down here and you're going to be looking at these people and telling them, well, I want to put a bowling alley in my yard, and I want to have 600 people, but, you all like me, so what the heck? He's a nice guy. Let him put a bowling alley there right next to two other neighbors. That's what land use planning is for, is to plan for that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with saying we take that into the road and say we're going to keep it light industrial. It's already light industrial. But don't just sit there and pretend, well, this one thing doesn't cause traffic when you've just today identified about 16 things that you want to put more traffic in, but you've talked about them each one individually. not the cumulative effect of all of this stuff. And you owe these people that. You got put here for a reason, and that was to look out for the citizens of Bothell, and not for every developer that walks in the door. And I have nothing against developers. I think you should be able to come in and develop. But these people have a right to know that when they spent years planning for the area, that they have some rights left in this process, and that you just can't arbitrarily, every time some nice guy walks in the door, change this little piece, and that little piece, and the other little piece. And you were absolutely right. That little 7,200 piece, that's a spot zone. And that's the reason they wanted to bring it all in together. You can't just arbitrarily do that. You can, obviously, because you're doing it, but I'm just saying that you owe these people something, and that's what your job is.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Be very quick. My name is Jesse Sears, 16220 Valhalla Drive. I've been to 2 planning meetings. I've heard multiple things. It comes down to things. We have an infrastructure problem. We have a traffic problem. We have all these other problems. I think it would be a shame to lose a business opportunity like this, Foggy Mountain Brewing, going into this area. This is exactly the type of business that we need in this community. It's exactly the type of business that we need to come into this. We need to solve other problems too, and I think that we can do that in the future. I think it comes down to traffic mitigation laws, traffic mitigation projects that we have in it. We need to increase those. We need to make it more within our city to be able to make that happen, to be able to pay for the infrastructure costs that we have. But it shouldn't be at the process of losing something like this brewery going into this downtown core because of that. So we have problems that we need to work out, and we need to work towards those. But if we lose attractions, areas like this, places that people want to go to, like the Foggy Mountain Brewery, we're losing out as the city of Bothell. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Yes, sir.
Paul Spreezauer, 10408 East Riverside Drive. Just want to make a brief comment. So one of the buildings on East Riverside Drive is a building my wife and I own. It's currently, designated office. And in a normal office environment, you can have one person per about 100 square feet. And the area that we're looking at for a brew pub is about 2,500 square feet. The majority of that would be actually for the brewing equipment, with 1 or 2 people working there. And only a small portion, 500, 700 square feet, would actually be for the tavern area and tasting area. So, and even if that's completely full, we're talking maybe 20 people. So our density in terms of people is actually going to be less, I believe, for this use than office professional. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other? Yes, ma'am. State your name, please, ma'am.
Carol Young, 11331 East Riverside Drive. The first issue that we talked about, and you were suggesting that the guy pay for his all the studies to find out, so that the city wouldn't have to pay for it. That makes me a little nervous. Does that mean that he could choose and have it maybe manipulated to? Don't you think it should be somebody that doesn't have any? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, Dave, could you just comment to any type of analysis that staff would require? And we would require the funding from the particular developer, but is the selection of the vendor done by the city staff?
No, they select their consultants, but we do have the right to get a third-party review if we have any questions about the analysis that their consultants do, and that's at the developer's cost.
All right, thank you.
So that goes for whether it's traffic study, wetland study, stream classification, or steep slopes analysis.
All right. And I would assume that we would require that they be a licensed consultant, there's a process of which they would have to be an approved consultant.
Yeah, there are standards depending on the type of work that they need to be
Right. Thank you.
Certified.
Are there any other? Yes, sir.
Mike Challenger, 21015 9th Avenue Southeast in north end of Bothell. There's three important things in retail. That's location, location, location. The proposed area is within walking distance of downtown. Downtown will need all the mass of people it can get in order to have the critical mass so we can get more business and hence a bigger tax base, because we're going to need the tax base to pay for that woefully inadequate intersection at Main Street. I've been in Bothell 28 years. That has always been a bad intersection, and the city, regardless of whatever happens on Riverside Drive, if you took all the residents away from Riverside Drive, you would still have a problem, because most of it is the intersection is people passing through. So that people are right. It is a bad intersection, but I don't think that should sway our view as to the proposed development, because we need all the business we can get, and at the same time we have to address the traffic issue. So I'm for this proposal.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no other public testimony, is there any further deliberation or discussion? Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. I based on the public testimony we just received, I guess I have three comments. First of all, I want to ask you a question, Dave, but I want to say something first, and that is that when I heard what Commissioner Vliet did by going out to the property, my inclination was not that he was doing something wrong, but that actually he was doing something very right. I think getting involved at that level I don't think it necessarily sways his decision to be gathering information about a specific proposal, and I think I actually applaud him for going out and having an actual look at the property, which I did not do. I am fairly familiar with that property already, and that's one of the reasons I didn't, but I don't see really any conflict with a commissioner on his own. In fact, I think it's better, and I think it's actually a requirement that they do it on their own if they are going to go. So I think that's entirely appropriate. And Dave, I'd ask you: is there a conflict of interest or some issue with the commissioner doing that? Because I'd like to know for future reference.
There isn't, and in fact, we encourage commissioners to go and look at the areas where rezones are being proposed. They don't necessarily have to go individually, but the commission can't go as a group without noticing that as a public meeting.
I can just tell you that as the chair, that's the guidance I've given to each of the commissioners, is that so Commissioner Vliet was acting on guidance that he's received both from me as well as from staff, and that is that we're certainly not required, but citizen to citizen to go and gather more information is something that we welcome.
We also encourage commissioners to talk to opponents too, to understand both sides of the issues. So it's not a one-way street.
Right. My second comment, Ms. Cox, you talked about this little piece, that little piece in terms of spot zoning, and I am entirely in agreement with you. That was my statement, and that is the reason that I voted against the Furman proposal. I voted against it because I believe that it is spot zoning and that we should have approved the entire area. I want to make that clear that I was not against the Furman proposal. I'm against approving it by itself as opposed to what the staff recommended, so I just wanted to put that on the record. Thirdly, I'm going to take off my commissioner's hat and put on my citizen's hat. I live on Norway Hill. I live right basically above the planning and development community that is it's been referenced several times tonight. As such, I drive to Bothell frequently down Riverside Drive. In fact, every time I go to Bothell, I drive that way. I've been doing my own kind of informal traffic study, and I guess I want to give my opinion because I've heard a lot of people talk about a 10-minute delay, a 25-minute delay, a 30-minute delay. In the last 2 months, I think I've probably driven through there 10 times during rush hour, and I've kept track every single time of how long it's taken me to get from the corner just past the overhead walkway between the two senior centers. From that corner, that stoplight, the quickest I've ever gotten to the four-way intersection at 102nd and Main is about 15 seconds. That's with no traffic, which is entirely expected. I think it's not a very far distance. The longest it's ever taken me in those 10 times that I've gone through is 3 minutes to get from that intersection from the stoplight to the intersection. And as I approached the intersection, I looked to see what was happening at that intersection, and what was happening was traffic alternating in four directions, one going at a time. So in my opinion, that's kind of, and I'm not a traffic engineer, but that seems to be kind of the worst case scenario for traffic at that point. And so I guess what I'm thinking is I can't see how it could take more time than that to get from that intersection. I've never seen traffic backed up for more than about 50 feet back of the overpass or the pedestrian crosswalk across the street. So I wanted to put that out there. Thirdly, sir, I did not catch your name. Jameson. Mr. Jameson, as a Bothell resident and a Norway Hill resident, I frankly would be happy to welcome your foggy noggin to this area. I just wanted you to know that. Thank you.
Any other deliberations or comments? Okay. Are we ready to take a motion on the staff recommendation?
I'll go ahead. I make a motion to go ahead with the staff recommendation.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So, the remaining issue is the sub-area plan itself, and I have the text available with highlighting the changes since it was last presented on November 19th. So we can go ahead with that if you're prepared.
Yeah, are you suggesting a page by page?
Yes, I am.
I believe we've all gone through it, but let's just do it quickly, and we will stop you if we have a need for a comment or a change.
Okay, and I was just going to focus on the changes that have made, and there have been a couple of changes since the packet went out based on input from the transportation planners. So no changes on the first page or the second or the third.
I've got one right there, Dave.
Did you have a comment?
I just had a question on under commercial. I believe there's a nursery referred to there that's no longer in business, but I don't know. It's along 100th Avenue Northeast where a nursery has been in operation. Yes. It's now a housing development, I believe.
Yep.
Yes. Good catch.
Thank you. You want to strike that line where a nursery has been in operation?
Okay, thank you. No changes on page 4. Or page 5. Okay, on page 6, what I have done in this draft is I've gone ahead and made changes in the language relative to the prospective rezones, and I didn't specifically identify the area for the R7200. I just said that area along the north side of Norway Hill would have a combination of R7200 and R9600 zoning. So that is valid with the decision made tonight. And then at the bottom of the page, that reflects the changes, the North Riverside rezone change. The Easton Avenue change doesn't require any change in this because it just did that minor modification of the existing zone, minor expansion. So page WS7, no changes since the November 19th draft. Page WSH as well, no changes.
We're tracking, now, our numbers, I think, are a little different, because we had the strict 6, 7, and 8, we have that, it was in, everything, all that language that was struck is, but I'm with you, we just, so we're,
Okay.
from our standpoint, we're on 11, you're on 8, but we're with you.
Oh, the whole section.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
We're with you.
Otherwise, the page breaks are in the same place?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So the next page, getting
I
into
think
the
I have one
natural
there.
environment and
Did you-
actions.
hold on.
Yeah.
It just with regards to this, so we're under natural environment actions. Let's see, policies and actions. It just, I don't know, on number 6 and 7 under policies, and 7 and 8 under actions. It's the same language, which I guess is not necessarily a problem. I guess was it supposed to be more of an action related construction, like ensure that construction occurring in the should be subject, or does that make any sense?
So you're on the actions?
Oh, so yeah, under the actions part.
Which numbers?
7 and 8. They're a carryover from policies number 6 and 7. It's the same language, and I don't know, it's kind of a.
Oh, your point is that the language is virtually identical, so we're having an action that's basically the same language as a policy.
Which I guess can happen. I mean, I guess the policy
Maybe
can be
a
an action.
copy paste kind of problem.
But that's I think that's a good point. I think that
Yeah.
we want our policies to truly be policies and our actions to be actions, and let's.
Yeah, and that's a carryover from the last time that I didn't catch. So
okay.
I can revise that so that to make that more of an action statement in the action 7 and 8, but a carryover from the policy side.
Good. I think that's a good.
And bring that back to you with the integrated plan.
Right. Thank you.
And moving on to your page WS13. No changes since November. Same on WS14 and 15. And 16. Oh. And then on to 17, when we get into the transportation, here's where I think we're getting into some changes in the page breaks. So I've highlighted the sections in the transportation section that the transportation planner has revised to make for consistency with the citywide transportation element and with changed with annexation and changed conditions in the area. So we'll just take a look at that under policy 7 here. That's just, again, to make the language the same as in the citywide element. On policy 9, those changes reflect the annexation previously referred to King County. And for some reason, let me try this. Now I'm getting the version that you're looking at. And then under actions, again, these are changes to reflect the annexation in action number 1, and to reflect the fact that we've done the dual usage, the shared roadway markers on East Riverside. So those are the changes that we wanted to bring to your attention tonight. And we do have one citizen signed in to comment on this portion of the plan.
Okay. Do you need a motion for us to approve these changes, or?
Well, let's first hear the public test.
Oh, do we have, I'm sorry.
I'm the lone survivor of the
Yes, sir.
to talk about this tonight. So I'm Jesse Sears from 16220 Valhalla Drive. I'm speaking on both behalf of myself and also the One Bothell Group tonight. Mainly in the areas of the comp plan, the sections of the natural environment and the Parks and Recs and open space section. Okay. I'm very excited to be part of a community that is being proactive in the environment, open space, and Parks and Recs. This is evidence with our Parks and Recs trails, open space that we already have within the city. We also have a great opportunity to build more trail systems, more park systems within the city with the open space and the land areas that we have. And also on top of that, we have a great opportunity to take care of our river that flows through our city. I foresee a day of an interconnected park system with big, large areas that are connected by trails, biking paths, with hiking trails, everything throughout the city. Being able to go down and get a beer at Foggy Noggin and, go across to the downtown. I see a river that, hopefully one day that can be cleaned up, that people want to play in, board in, kayak in. And, that river already has one really special thing. It has coho salmon in it, which is a federally threatened species. And with that watershed, Bothell is really kind of the gatekeeper, both of the upstream and downstream, meaning that all the salmon that swim upstream have to come through Bothell. So our waterways are very, very key for the habitat that goes upstream. On top of that, the water quality that goes downstream. It affects everything downstream to orcas out in the ocean because it's the food source that they say. Very minimum food source that comes through here, but still, it's an effect. Our comp plan has some great policies and actions that the city is setting forth, both in the sections, the natural environment and the Parks and Recreation section. I myself and One Bothell Group are in full support of these sections of the comp plan. Today, in fact, One Bothell is excited to support the city and meeting these goals and trying to fulfill these in the future. Today, members of One Bothell are in Olympia lobbying for funding for projects that would be perfect for these goals that are set forth by the city. We need to set the city up for success, and everything is based around funding. All right. I'm here today to ask that the city puts more action points towards other funding sources than just the capital facilities plan in both the natural environment section and the Parks and Rec section. Some examples of this would be state appropriations money, King County money that is such as the Conservation Futures Program that just got passed this week by King County to be able to buy large sections of land. Another one would be programs like the Washington Wildlife Funds, currently funded at $70 million and with a goal of $97 million within the state to buy lands, restore lands, to protect waterways, trail systems, everything along those lines. The PSAR fund, the Puget Sound Association of Restoration Fund, currently funded at $50 million. And then on top of that, endless amounts of private funding, grants, and environmental groups that are out there willing to help. All we're saying is that it would be nice to have in our plan a proactive approach to be able to acquire these funds to meet the goals beyond just the capital expenditures that are in place or within the goals of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steers. I'll just add a comment. I really agree with the input, and I think we all do as well. We have, as we've gone through the plan, some of the actions are stronger than others. We've attempted to do that, but I would agree with you. Funding, we do have a capital facilities plan that's separate from this plan that does have a funding schedule for a lot of these actions. But I think creating a link between our capital facilities plan and this plan is a sound idea. I would also add, in addition to funding, what we need is engineering. I mean, there needs to be whether we're talking about transportation or natural environment or anything, even there needs to be dollars, but there needs to be well thought out engineering as to how we're actually going to accomplish this. So those would be my comments to the citizen. Commissioner Cabe.
I used to serve on the Parks Board, and funding is always a difficult conversation when it comes to parks and rec open spaces. PROSAP has quite a few elements that are outlined with maybe a potential future Metropolitan Parks District or different ways about going about to secure parks land and develop neighborhood parks or trails. David, is there I mean, I know we tie between PROSAP and our plan throughout, but I think you bring up a great point that it needs to be more of a focus because if you look at our tax basis, it's sort of an afterthought as opposed to a emphasis. So I would be in support of tying it to the capital facilities plan, and I don't really know what we could do beyond that in this section, but I think it's a good point you brought up.
Yeah, I think if I see some most concurrence up here, but if we do have, we don't want to duplicate what we're doing, but I think creating that link here between this plan and that, put some thought into that. I don't think we have anything specific for you right now, but I am in complete support of this idea that our actions need to have true methods for them to be achieved. You can call them tools, you can call them dollars, whatever, but in order for our actions to happen, to not just be aspirational, but to truly achieve them. Okay.
So, yeah, and I can talk with Bruce Blackburn, who worked on the natural environment element. I think this probably goes citywide, not just for this sub-area.
Right,
so,
correct.
About whether he considered any specific references to funding actions related to natural resources, and also go take another look at PROSAP. We essentially have adopted PROSAP as our parks element, and take another look at that for what it has relative to this, beyond just relying on the capital facilities plan. But I'll take a look, and we can then bring any recommendations that we have back to you with the integrated plan.
Thank you. Okay. Was there any further comment or anything, or would you need from us a motion with regards to the language?
Yes, and I actually have two draft motions here for you to select from. So first, to preliminarily approve the Wayneta Simons Norway Hill sub-area plan as amended tonight.
I guess I would just say I think we'll provide that motion with some of the recommended action changes that we just discussed.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to that?
I'll give it a shot. Motion to preliminary approve the Wayneta Simons Norway Hill sub-area plan with added emphasis in the natural environment and parks and open space sections, providing a link to the capital facilities plan.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then I think we just have one to continue the public hearing. Do you need one for the minor changes in the sub-area text as well?
No, I think that...
Yeah, what we just did, I think, covers that.
As covered in the motion.
I'll motion to continue the public hearing on the 2015 periodic plan and code update to March 4th.
Second. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you.
Just closing up our meeting here, we do not have a study session, old business. Any other reports from staff?
None.
Any other reports from members? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.